So it's 20 people. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. I'm joined by Joseph and Emilio from Heaton Vences. We've got 21 people in the room at the moment, so I'll just give it a few minutes before we kick off properly, and then we can dive in and listen to the story of Heaton Vences, which is a really interesting one. Someone's dropped out. We've gone down. We went up and then down. There we go.
I didn't like that.
We'll wait until 1 minute past, and then we'll crack on, if that's right with you both and everybody else.
That's fine.
If during just for everybody in the room, if during the webinar you've got a question you want answered, if you can tap that away in the box to the bottom right, and we'll do our very best to integrate those in. We've got some great questions. Well, I said they're great questions because I came up with them, really. But we've got some good questions. I think they should cover lots of the topic. But if there is anything specific that we're not covering, please do share it with us. And if we don't get around to it in the webinar, we will follow up outside of this. Okay, so I think we're up to 24. That seems like a good number for us to start on. So, Emilio, Joseph, welcome. Great to have you here for you to share your story and your insight. I think the first question is, it's quite a big one. Why did you set up Heaton Vences? What was the rationale behind setting up?
Yeah, I suppose
this is where we pause, by the way, and decide who's going to talk first.
We could both talk about this. I suppose we ultimately were unhappy in the jobs we were in as a starting point, but the reason for that is because we were both working in mid-tier local firms where we were in Norwich, and the client managers we were working with were just completely stretched for resources. They had far too many clients to deal with at any one time, which made the work not enjoyable, because you just had clients every single day saying, well, I've not spoken to so-and-so, this work isn't being done. So anyway, from that, we said, well, surely there's a better way. And that's how Heaton Vences was born. And we just started thinking about each area of a practice, and if we were clients, what would that practice look like? Everything from the branding to the services, and how we communicate to clients, how often we communicate to clients.
Yeah, just elaborate a little bit more on that as well. I mean, I remember when we first started the business, we were ultimately looking at trying to set up a clothing brand beforehand, and a lot of it was around being entrepreneurial first and accountant second. So we always had the knack or the interest to kind of start a business that was always brand focused. And so building Heaton Vences was more like an experiment for us rather than just something we jumped into to expect, getting clients and building a portfolio and ultimately becoming, our advisors to our clients. It was more or less just trying to build a brand and build an ethos and a culture around what we do, so that no matter what we end up doing, whatever service we end up jumping into, we'll ultimately be able to deliver on the same methodology that we've built from scratch from the very beginning.
I think it's interesting you said about building a brand, and just to touch on what Joseph said as well. I think building a brand is more than just the logo and the colours. It's about how often you're going to communicate with your clients. What's the tone of voice? I think so often people think of branding as being the superficial stuff. It seems like you started with, our brand is about doing this different to our previous employers, and communication is a really important part of this. So that's one part, and that brings me on to the next question or sub question, which is, you guys started with a fully outsourced model, right? Outsourcing was sort of baked into your business model from day one. Tell us a bit about, again, the thinking behind that. Joseph, you've touched on, you've worked in firms where there was a lack of resource. Was that a consideration?
Absolutely, that was our starting point. And I'll go back and I'll actually say we didn't start as a fully outsourced firm. We did actually think the plan was to hire in-house, because that's what we were used to. We thought, well, that's how we've worked before, so we'll try and do that again. So we did actually almost hire someone. Maybe we did hire them, I can't remember. But we soon realized that wasn't for us, and it didn't fit with the business we were trying to create. And I'm sure we'll get onto that in terms of whether the outsource model kind of fits with your type of practice. But for us, we knew that it wasn't going to work to hire in-house, because we wanted to build the like ultimate scalable business, which meant working with an outsourced firm, so we have constant access to resources.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also Kevin's the chief advisor for our business as well, which is actually Joseph's dad.
Okay.
So like back then we were like learning from him before we even started. So, you know, most business owners, they don't have that opportunity to take on someone that can act as a mentor from day one. So being able to tell us like what the pitfalls were associated to employment allowed us to think about, okay, outsourcing is actually going to be the solution to the madness.
I think Kevin's just joined. So hi, Kevin. Hi to you as well.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, no.
yeah, having someone to mentor you and talk you through this
Yeah.
must have been really, really, really important. So talking about that, we talked about brand, talking about culture. You're creating something different. So how did you go about integrating? You know, obviously you've got the team over in India. How do you go about integrating outsourcing those people into your culture? You know, designing the systems and processes. Presuming Kevin had some help, helped you a bit with that as well. But what was through that process? Because I think that's the bit that people get nervous about. How do we integrate people into our business?
We actually spoke about this, didn't we, Joseph? Like several times, and trying to understand like what the best way to migrate our team into our culture would be. I think a lot of people think that, you know, taking on an outsource resource is actually going to just work seamlessly without intervention. And that's actually the worst thing to do, because ultimately these resources are ultimately people that are there to help you thrive and grow your business. And they need to be the people that you actually support and nurture, and actually have to embed them into your culture as you would do anyone else in your team. So I think that's when we see this so many times on LinkedIn. Oh, you know, I don't want to employ anyone overseas. I only have people in the UK. The biggest problem is the way they've approached it is that they've looked at it as just like another service they've just onboarded from another provider, and the other provider is just going to do all the work without them getting involved. But if we were to talk to our clients, and the way that we talk to our clients every day is that we say to them, well, we need your involvement as well, right? We need them to get involved so that the finance data actually thrives and works, right? You know, we need to be able to work in unison with them. But if that doesn't happen, then everything falls apart. So the same thing as well is like, you know, working with your team, working with the outsourced team the same way as you would do anyone else that's employed in your business.
I think it's surprising how many companies, not just in accountancy, don't do a great job onboarding new joiners, whether it's outsourced or people that are part of the permanent team. It's such an important bit, and it's such a lasting impression. And in terms of systems and processes, obviously very important. But if that person is following a set of systems and processes that for an organisation they don't feel part of, it's really difficult to get to understand it. I did another sort of podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the feedback I gave was, someone can join your firm whether they're part of an outsourcer or whether they're a new joiner that's employed permanently, and they'll know how to be an accountant, right? They'll know how to do the work, but they may not necessarily know how to do it in the way Heaton Vences does it, and that's the bit that often I think lets people down. In that you go, right, well, you should know how to do this. Well, how? This is we may over communicate. You may over index on client communication. Well, you can't criticize if someone's coming from a different environment where that's not the norm. They're not going to be able to, they're not going to understand that. So I think that's great, and I think your systems and processes we'll probably come back to. But one of the sort of points that gets made a lot to me, and has been for a number of years, is around, you know, how do you transfer data and whole data security piece, because you have got people that are working, you know, as you said, Amelia, they're working in a different country to you. How did you go about sort of reconciling that in your head? Data security and client service really important. They're actually one and the same thing, really, in many ways. Talk us through how you overcame that sort of hurdle.
Do I take this one, Joseph?
I mean, you are the systems guy.
The systems guy. You know, for us, you know, security is obviously the most important thing for us, right? Because especially when we started our business, our whole premise of our business was to be completely digital first. So if we weren't to focus on that and make sure that security was the most important thing, then of course we'd fall foul of our promise, right? When we already looked at other providers before joining B3 as well. So we had kind of a glimpse in terms of like what their security measures were, what their level of output would be, how they would communicate with us. A lot of it was like, it was very detached, right? So when we went to B3, we felt like the whole system was going to work really easily. And then we looked at security, right? Because we wanted to make sure, everything from, not being able to access their phones when they're in the office, the fact that they're working on remote desktop servers, so things are actually, there's, security is firm wide, making sure that they're communicating only on channels that we allow them to. We've even embedded like our own processes as well, so that they can follow some of our stuff that's bespoke to us. So like using Keeper Security, which is like something that we use for our password manager. So, and even like from example of like having antivirus firewalls, even as another measure in terms of having in our own organization, so that even no matter whoever's using whatever platform that we're on, things are still secure even after the security's been carried out from B3's point of view. So I think we're always looking at like how do we double wrap something just to be sure that everything's okay, because I think also as much as you're reliant on another firm being secure, you're also going to remember that you also going to be secure within. So, for example, within HV, we need to make sure that we're secure, right? Because anything can pass through. So, I think taking that knowledge as well from B3, we're able to ask questions as to how we could become more secure as well. Because again, that I'm pretty sure, like you guys have a department as well that's literally centered around cybersecurity now. So, like, there's a lot of aspects there where you're going to get support from people that actually know what they're talking about, rather than someone just feeding you, basic information on like Google, which anyone could look up, or ChatGPT, right? So it's like there's people that can help us, scale our security as well, and that's what's given us the confidence to work with B3.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've spent the last sort of 15 years in software and information security. It's become such a big part of it. I think it's always, particularly with cloud software now, such an important part of the whole process in the accounting industry. And I think it's moved on. It's improved so much in the last certainly 5 years, I would say. Just to take a slight pause, I think we've got a poll that we're going to sort of put up. So we'd love you all to participate in the poll, which is, Kevin's going to put ISO standards come for a lot. I think that's a great point. I think that's a really, really great point to make on that point. So then we're going to put a poll up just to see who's currently using outsourcing and who's not, and who's looking at it. So I will leave one of my colleagues who's far cleverer than me pop that up. So if you would like to vote, that'd be really helpful. We've sort of touched on the good stuff, setting up the new business, branding, getting the processes right. Were there any pain points? Talk us through the pain points. Not so much about starting up, because obviously starting up businesses, there's a million pain points. You've got this fully outsourced model. Did you have any resistance from your clients? Were there any internal obstacles from other members of your team there, or anything else that I'm missing out on? But give us the negative stuff. That's what people are here for. They're here for the what were the hurdles you had to overcome?
Yeah. I think the early days we were just too hands off with it, which Emilio touched on. We probably didn't invest enough time when a new team member joins us, actually sitting down with them and saying, look, this is HV, this is how we work, these are all the systems, this is all the tech. We didn't do that. It was very much, okay, we've got someone in now, whether it's for the accounts team, okay, here's your tasks, get on with it. And then shock, when we got the final result, we had to make loads of changes, and there was all sorts that wasn't right with it. So that's something that we needed to really focus on, to put more time into the individuals and into the teams, and helping them understand exactly how we work and how we work with our clients, because every business is unique, and the way we do things, it can be very different to how other practices are going to do things.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think there's always going to be pain points whenever you try a new process or add someone into the team. There's always pain points, right? And I think this is the same actually when a business is running. It tends to be the bits where people interface or process interface. That's where things break, and it's whether that's data transfer or communication internally or externally. I've seen the best run projects, and this isn't just exclusive to outsourcing. It's definitely the same in software. The best projects I've seen implemented have been where there's a clear plan. Great, you'd expect to see a clear plan for any kind of new project, but it's clearly communicated, not just to the team, the project team, but to everybody that's impacted, every stakeholder, whether that be the members of the team or whether it be clients, and then that works really seamlessly. Even, you roll out a new piece of software. If you roll a new piece of software out to 20 clients, 10 of them will probably go, yeah, this is great, get on with it. 5 will need a nudge, and 5 will just go, I have no idea how this works. And then so you end up having to over invest to get those guys up to speed. Sometimes it doesn't work at all, right? And sometimes there's 1 or 2 where you just go, no, there's no point. Get the plastic carrier bag with the brand on and get the data that way. Because as we were talking about before the meeting, but I think it's the communication piece. You can always resolve things. It's actually about getting that done.
And I'll just add to that, Andrew. Sorry, you mentioned was there any resistance from clients? That's a good point, because we actually didn't, because our clients, and it will definitely be different for different firms, but for us, because we pitch ourselves as a digital firm and we're very out there, we tell people, well, this is our team, they're fully outsourced, so clients actually buy into it. And the fact that somebody else is doing the day-to-day work, but we're still meeting with them and talking about this work that's being produced. They don't care who's done the work. They just care that it's done to a good standard, and it's done in a timely manner, I guess.
Yeah, if you look at most marketing agencies nowadays, they all freelance and they all outsource. It's been done for the last 10 years. It's not unheard of. But for example, when it comes to the accounting industry, because now it's booming with outsource firms coming out from scratch, from new, we're literally in an opportunity now to kind of utilize businesses that are able to scale and provide that level of support for us where we can't do it ourselves. So if you think about, our support team, that's completely outsourced. It's something that we can now rely on, that B3 can also take our feedback on and find ways in scaling the service, because there might be pros and cons associated to their role, but they won't know that until we tell them that's happening. So again, there's a lot of scalability in a lot of these practices, a lot of these outsource firms that obviously can supplement what you do with your clients. But I do think there's a lot of businesses out there, if you're just doing compliance and you're not talking to your clients, then there may be an issue with your clients thinking, okay, well, everything's outsourced in the service that you provide me. And ultimately, what are you there to deliver to me as a business owner in the UK? Whereas with us, because we are the business owners delivering advisory services alongside the compliance, the clients still feel like they're getting that, they still feel like their hand is being held. And so they're not resistant against it, because they know the junior level of services that are being delivered are ultimately from the outsourced business that we're using, B3. But the level of service where it's like more advanced, we're looking at more of the strategic thinking and looking at more of like our outsourced FD roles. Those are being delivered in a more senior level.
Yeah, makes sense, and that's what brings me up to the next point. Talk us through your outsourced team. How big is it? What type of work? What type of tasks are you sending to the outsourced team? And well, describe the outsourced. I'll give you sort of a blank canvas. Describe the outsourced team and what work are they doing for you?
We're not a huge firm, so just to begin with, is how we take on clients is that we take low volume, high fees. So ultimately, a lot of the stuff that we charge for is at a high fee due to the advisory role that we take on, so our time. However, the aspects of where we don't want to get involved in, like the accounts, the drafting of the accounts, the payroll, bookkeeping, support, ultimately a lot of that process is actually outsourced so that we can then carry on with the rest of our services. We're now a team of, would I say 8 now? So we're still building on the different services that we're delivering as well. So we're finding new avenues where we can also use other resources in the future. But we're on a route of self-discovery as well for our business. We're not saying we're perfect today, and we probably never will be, but ultimately we're still trying to find ways in that we can mitigate any chance of us becoming more of a bottleneck, right? Because we don't want to be centered in the business where everything's reliant on us. We want to make sure that there's processes and systems working in the back end for our team. So that's why we use Carbon, for example, that helps manage our team, helps keep them on track. And we also try and ensure that the team feels eager to give us feedback as much as we will give them feedback, so that we're wanting them to kind of fight us for anything they disagree on, because we don't want them to feel like they're following orders. They're actually working with us, not working for us.
That makes a lot of sense. I think I spoke to Carbon earlier in the week, a different conversation, and I think they're doing pretty well in the UK at the minute with the sound of things. Definitely, we'll come up. We'll have a chat about that offline about practice management, but there's definitely definitely opportunity there. I think it's great, team of 8 and to grow so rapidly. Presuming that allows you both to actually spend more time on those kind of virtual FD type jobs where you're doing the advisory, but also to grow the business itself, right? Because speaking of personal experience, you've got to go. Business development takes time. You need to invest some time in things like networking and being present on social media, writing content, etc. That must be one of the advantages of being able to delegate the sort of more run-of-the-mill tasks to the outsourced team.
Absolutely, yeah. The aim was to remove all of the day-to-day tasks from us. So, like I said, so we can work on the business, whether it's still client work, so the advisory stuff, or it is just working on the business and not client focused. So the team are really doing everything. Just the accountancy, for example, they're dealing with all of the year-end accounts, the management accounts, the cash flow forecasts, any ad hoc stuff that we throw at them, and they say, "Oh, well, again." Various tax calculations and other forecasts that we'll ask them to do. The admin team as well, that everything else sort of in between submissions of accounts, confirmation statements, talking to HMRC, which is a massive one for us because we've completely avoided that now.
I definitely outsource talking to HMRC.
That alone, we've saved like a hell of a lot of time. It could be a full-time role, yeah. And speaking with suppliers, that's probably a newer role that our sort of admin resource has gone into. But they're able to speak to suppliers and maybe figure out if they're right for us. Like, I think a recent example, Firm Check. They were very involved with us, sort of onboarding Firm Check as a supplier.
I'm going to give Kev Lord a name check because Kev Lord used to work for me at Free Agent, and he's there. He's a great guy.
Good guy. And then of course you've got bookkeeping and payroll as well, all being dealt with. So that was really the aim, just to remove all of those day-to-day tasks. Anything you can think of is to outsource it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is probably more of a broader question. So this is where you guys can share your opinion. Do you think the outsourcing model works for all accountancy? Would work for all accountancy firms? And what advice would you give to firms who are considering outsourcing?
I would say no, only because it's not necessarily the business, but the business owner. So I think you have to have an open mind, and using an outsourced firm. I think you need to have an eagerness to learn and be willing to take on feedback as well as deliver feedback. It's the same thing we've been talking about. It doesn't work effectively unless you build a system around your team. And so, if you're not willing to put in the work for that and willing to step back away from those duties that you normally would have done yourself, then there's not really much scalability in it. I think you need to always be eager to say, look, I'm gonna stop doing this. I'm gonna stop being the bottleneck. I'm gonna allow someone to do the work for me, and I'll be able to then, scale my services because of it, because I'll have time to focus on my business rather than working in it. So that's what we try to sell to our clients as well. This whole dream of, stop working in your business, start working on it, start growing and scaling your practice or your agency or your practice. So I do think not everyone fits in the same situation that we do.
I'll probably add to that as well. I agree that it probably doesn't work for everyone, but it depends on the kind of business you're trying to build. We're talking about it from our point of view, from our experience, which is we built a digital firm, and the idea was to remove any paper, to outsource everything like we've been talking about. So it makes sense for us, and it fits into our systems quite well. I think if you've got some in-house team members and you're trying to integrate an outsourced team, that's obviously got its own challenges that we haven't had to deal with. So I suppose if you're you're a local firm, you're servicing local clients, you've got your team there, and clients come in and they meet the different team members, it might not work. Or maybe you can add an admin resource, and maybe one resource from each team to supplement the existing teams and help with the workload.
So I'll share that, because I've worked with a number of firms on outsourcing projects over the last couple of years, and there's a combination of the ones where there are existing team members. We talk about communication. It's actually about explaining to the team, these are the tasks that are going to be delegated. Here's how this is going to work. This is what this is going to allow you to focus on. And actually, usually it means that their role is going to improve and become more exciting. Not always. There are some instances where that's not the case. But I think the biggest driver I see for firms implementing outsourcing are, one, just not being able to recruit, whether that's because local area there's not enough talent there to fill the gap. And that isn't just in the big cities, it can be in some of the towns as well. Or their team. And I did a lot of work at ICAW with graduates come into the profession, and the role of an accountant has changed massively. People want to be focused on the higher value work that you've described. You guys have kind of created a role for yourself, which is interesting, allows you to focus on the piece that you like. In the same way as many people enjoy the compliance pieces as well. It's sort of horses for horses, really. But I think if you explain to the team, this is why we're doing this. The business needs more resource. We touched on the point. You Joseph, that bit, your sort of preamble around the firm you previously worked at not having enough resource. That really affects retention of the people you really want to keep, which happened in your case, right? And what I see is, we're not going to do outsourcing, the existing team doesn't want to do it, or we're not going to implement this bit of software, the existing team doesn't want to do it. Don't speak to the team. Actually, what happens is the team say, that firm down the road is going to allow me to use that bit of software that I want, and also to focus on that part of the role that I really enjoy doing, which is generally the client-facing piece for a lot of people. Not always. Again, some people like to be the whole finders, minders, and grinders sort of description of a professional service practice, which I'm showing my age now as a 46-year-old former solicitor. But that role, some people want to do the client-facing bit, free them up to do it. And I think the open-minded is a great phrase to use. I think you have to be open-minded. You have to be open with the team. Transparency. I say this for two 13-year-old twin Gen Z daughters. Transparency and sharing information. It's different. That's what you need to do now. You need to explain the rationale behind why you're making it. I have to do it on a personal basis. It seems like for almost every decision I make in my house, right? But if you've got a team of people, you have to be more transparent. You can't have that kind of, it's nothing to do with you. It's my business. It is. You own it, right? Yeah. Your name may be on the door and the capital, but the team, they all have a stake in it. And this is what we've seen with employee trusts and things, aren't we?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's always an opportunity for anyone in the team to scale, to grow, especially with our team at the moment. Even though they're outsourced, they're learning from us, and there's opportunity for them to promote their way through B3 as well. Find opportunities for them, and it's like you're actually enabling people all across the world, especially for us. Being with ACCA, we're enabling people to feel like they have opportunities to become something more than where they've started from. And the same thing I had as Joseph did. When I started in my firm, it was constantly just finding new recruits every year to basically become a trainee, and sit there and literally just obey every command that you've been given, and being told that you need to follow this process. This is the process that works for us. But in your mind, you already know the process could be improved. There's always room for improvement. But it's like, setting up our own business allowed us to kind of just have that flexibility and make our own rules up, right? And at the same time, with B3, all our resources actually say, this doesn't work, guys. We need to change it up. We need to make some changes that actually enable the business to thrive. And ultimately, if we're not going to listen to their feedback, we're looking at a team that's going to be demoralized because we're not including them in our business. So it's basically making them feel like they're empowered.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm just going to click see if there's any questions on you. No one's asked a question. Conscious of time, and we give you. I could talk to you both for hours, and I'm sure we will in future as we've done before this call. if anybody does have a question, if we've probably got a minute or two where you can add those in. If you've got any questions you want to answer, put them on here, and we'll come back to you with answers. But I think that's been a really good description of your experience, and I know the firm you've built is a really unique firm, digital first, embracing outsourcing. I think it's a really good kind of microcosm of where accountancy is going. So thank you for giving up. I'm sure you're busy. Emilio, I know you had to take time out just before the webinar started to take delivery of your new car. So thank you for.
Yeah, just had an EV turn up 5 minutes beforehand. Good timing.
Normally I just get like a next parcel, but you obviously get cars delivered is from the cameras. But really appreciate you both joining and sharing that with us. I think we've still got 31 people on here. If anybody's got a quick question, add that in, and we've got a chat. Hang on, what have we got there? Let's have a look.
Yeah, it looks like Phil's asked about qualifications.
We're big on ACCA. So we wanted to ensure that they were an approved employer. So if they weren't to be an approved employer, then we wouldn't want to go with them. And it's only because we want to make sure that globally we're following the same standards as we would for ourselves. So, and also we want to encourage everyone to be part of ACCA. It's just something we're really proud of. And, we love working with ACCA. We love being part of such an incredible body. And, because it's so global, that we've got that huge outreach to find resources all across the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. ACCA, great qualification. I think the internationalization. Shruti's asked a question. What about PI?
You've asked the wrong person. We've got Kevin in here. PI was definitely covered as well. I mean, we've gone through ACCA as well because we need to make sure that we've got professional indemnity insurance with the right insurance provider, because they actually have one that's approved with ACCA.
Got you. That makes sense. That all ties together with your internal qualifications and PIPs. Shruti, hope that answers your question. If you need any more info on that, I'm sure we can dive into that offline as well. Looks like we've run out of questions. There's two questions. Two questions is better than no. Hang on, we've got.
There's more.
There's more. Right, okay. Angelica, so how do you deal with GDPR and AML requirements? Well, you mentioned firm check for AML.
Yeah. We've made sure that everyone is also trained through firm check, but mostly it's not just for those that are processing AML, but it's also for those to be aware of the anti-money laundering requirements that exist, especially in the UK. We're aware, obviously when you're looking at anyone across the world, as a resource globally, you're concerned whether they're going to follow the same sort of AML processes. But that's why we've encouraged that, B3 are also looking at that standard as well as being an important factor in terms of their relationship with us. And, not everyone's perfect, everyone's willing to learn. So again, we've got our admin team that are constantly learning from firm check, and actually they've kind of like empowered themselves, fortunately enough, to like constantly learn from firm check, and they've got a great relationship with the team there as well. So we feel like we're completely supported there. And from a GDPR perspective, that's perfect. I'd say it's more from a B3 point of view of like how you guys tackle it, right? But I think mainly, for us, we're ensuring that all data that's being processed is being processed correctly, right? And ultimately, that's always our consideration, especially when we've got engagement that is going out to clients, where we've said we're actually engaged and we're following GDPR protocols. So I think that's constantly changing as well, and we make sure that everyone's trained up to the correct GDPR standards.
I think we touched on the data security, but we've got sort of GDPR policies. Again, we can share that. We'd be more than happy to share that. So reach out to us and we'll deal with it. Vicky, I can see Vicky's typing there, so we'll just maybe give her a minute to post the question out, because I think it's going to be a big one, guys, because she's been typing for a little bit. So Vicky, feel free to press.
No pressure.
Okay, carry on. So how do you deal with the change of team? I will leave you guys if you've experienced that. Please share your experience.
Joseph, do you want to go for that one?
Yeah, I mean, the change of team member, it's with regards to the clients. I mean, we've had team members change, and it's pretty much dealt with by B3. We are introduced to the new team member, and there's a process of them in the background before they've joined us, understanding us, how we work, who our clients are, how we work with our clients, everything about us. So when they start day one, they've already got that head start. Of course, like we said, there's always, you still need the hand holding and invest that time, put the training in, give loads of feedback to build up this next team member. So how we deal with it from our side, it's quite easy. It is just putting the time in to ensure that the new team member is sort of up to scratch and understands how we deal with our clients.
Yeah, I suppose similar to people leaving and because I've something I've gone through a lot. Run teams for quite a long time. When someone leaves and someone new comes in, there's always that you need to make sure the clients understand, or the customers understand what's going on. I've worked in software companies with account manager shifting. That happens quite frequently, more than you'd like, to be honest with you. But
yeah,
so
I think that works well for you, Andrew, because you are the client manager, right? So you knew that you're still there, as part of that relationship. It didn't kind of break down. Whereas the same thing with us. We are the client managers. We're not going to leave. Ultimately, those people are still communicating with us. As long as we're showing them how it's changed and what the process looks like, it works. It's why we create HV hubs, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. We created HV hubs because that's going to empower chartered accountants to join HV and have their own business. So that's why we're trying to move people down that road of you can become an accounting business owner and have all the systems and processes that we use and the resources that we use at their disposal to be able to scale their practice. And I think that's what a lot of people find, is that they try and have to get consultants in to try and help them manage their outsource team instead. There's a lot of scalability doing it through our way, where we've developed our own business model. But I do think it's quite difficult where yes, you will lose a member of staff or a resource that you probably had on your books. But ultimately, it's about trying to communicate as much as you do internally and do the same thing externally with your clients, so that they understand, like you mentioned, they understand what those changes and shifts look like and how that's going to impact them. But when you look at our model, it doesn't really impact them so much, because we're still doing the client facing.
You're the layer in front of it. I think that's it. Having multiple comments. Guys, I'm just conscious that we've overrun, which I'm not surprised with the three of us having had 30 minutes to talk. We've taken
an hour.
Yeah, exactly. The next one, the webinar 2 will be an hour and a half. It'll be this. It'll be an opus.
Yeah, let's do it.
But, I think just thank you all for joining us. I think probably a good time to end there. If anybody does have any questions, you can get hold of the three of us on LinkedIn, and we're all pretty active on there.
Yeah.
Please do send us a message. I've got my BeFree email, which is andrew@befreelimited, which is ltd.com. Please do send that. We've got some questions and some follow-up to do here. But yeah, really enjoyed the conversation, as always. Thank you all for your questions, and I think we will draw it to a close there.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Cheers.
Thanks,